I'm Michaela. I work as a volunteer here helping visitors for the museum on the handling tables, and this is my guide dog Gypsy. So I have Gypsy because I'm registered blind. I only have a small amount of vision in my left eye and I'm completely blind in my right. So having Gypsy just helps me to kind of get around the museum without bumping into things and keeps me safe. And she also gives me support due to my anxiety. So she helps in obviously keeping me calm and being able to be professional while helping other visitors while at the museum. So my disability affects obviously the enjoyment in terms of the museum, because when it comes to things that I enjoy, like ancient history for example, it's kind of limits what I can see because of the distance between me and the objects. I can't see them in detail, and being able to read the labels to tell me what these objects are makes things impossible because of the size of them and the amount of information. It's just too much for my eyes to see. So to me it just basically looks like a small block of information, which is pretty much useless. So I'm limited to the kind of things I can enjoy from the museum because it's just, I see a glass cabinet with these objects in them, and a lot of them are kind of shadowed from the light and things in the museum as well, which just to me makes it look like I'm looking at shadows while walking around instead of being able to fully immerse myself into what I'm looking at, which is what I would prefer to be able to do. So before the audio was actually introduced to the museum, I'd already visited the Nature Through Roman Eyes exhibit, and due to the light and the way things were in there, obviously something that can't be helped by the museum itself, it was rather difficult for me to see things, and a lot of it was again just shadows and darkness inside these cases, and was really difficult for me to appreciate and look at properly. For example, there's actually a painting in there of the rescue from Pompeii, and I was looking at it and all I could see was like these odd shapes and then red and black, and that was definitively all my eyes could pick up. Whereas when the audio had already been put in and these tags were around, once I'd listened to the audio and it explained the different factors, so the people in the foreground, the red at the back was actually the erupting volcano, the romanticization from the lightning and trying to make this look like a story through a painting. Everything that was pointed out became clear to me through the picture, because it was saying in the foreground, in the background, to the far right, so it was pointing everything out and making it clearer for me to see, which gave my eyes something to look for, and then I could appreciate what I was looking at rather than just seeing a mix of colour on a board. So that kind of opened things up. And things like the books, there's one of the cases had a book in it, and it explains obviously what this book was showing, which kind of opens up and makes it easier for me to appreciate what I'm looking at, because these things are no longer just shadows and things, they're pieces of history that I can appreciate now, which is kind of what you want from the beginning anyway, to be able to come in and immersify yourself in these things. And with the audio tag, I actually have that opportunity to do that and be able to take the time to look at everything and understand what I'm looking at, and not just a small shape of, say, a goblet or a book or the painting itself. I can look at it and see it for what it is, instead of what my brain originally perceives it as through the information from the audio tag, because I can pick out the details. I suppose the joys as well of the actual tag is because it's not just the audio file, you do get a website with all of the different objects connected to it. You get the opportunity where if there is something I'm struggling to see on site, I can look at it on my phone, enlarge it, and be able to see what it's talking about in front of me on a device, either my phone, or I could go home and reload the website onto my laptop and be able to look at each object in my own time and be able to say, oh okay, so something that I didn't notice earlier on while at the museum, I can actually see now through my computer's software making things bigger, through using this website, which makes you want to go back and look at things over and over again and sort of re-immersify yourself into it and kind of relive what you've already been and seen at the museum, which kind of gives you that pull to go back and look at these things again, now that you've got a clearer picture of them, and say, oh okay, so this that I didn't see earlier, I can actually see now because I've spotted it on the picture. And it gives you that kind of realization of this is actually here, and kind of makes you appreciate basically the entire program and how much it opens up your ability to see specific things that otherwise you wouldn't have had a clue about if it weren't for the program in the first place. So my hope is that through giving feedback, the entire program could be obviously improved a little. I found that the tags were going to be placed in various points throughout the exhibit, whereas I'd pointed out that for a blind person, you're actually trained with whichever hand you're more dominant with to go to the top left point or top right point of a cabinet or something in front of you and kind of move your hand along to find things. So the tags needed to be in a consistent place for them to be kind of easy access for somebody with a sight problem, or indeed other disabilities like somebody in a wheelchair. And the voice for the tag that was used as well was also kind of difficult to understand and hard to follow, which made you lose concentration quite quickly because it was speaking so quickly and so hard to understand. So in improvements of that, it would make things a lot easier for somebody to use, as they'd be able to obviously understand what's going on and be able to kind of immerse themselves into things a bit better, with the ease of access for the tags all being in the same place throughout all of the cabinets. Of Vespasian before, from what we had in the Money Gallery, and I couldn't really appreciate what the other volunteer I was working with, Sue, was talking about in terms of like his facial features, how it sounds crazy, but like how his nose was a funny shape. But being able to look at that bust in more detail on a picture and hear that audio of it being explained, I can kind of appreciate what she meant now, which kind of gives me much of a fonder memory of thinking about working with those coins now, because I know what she was talking about, whereas before it was just, to me, it's just a scratching on a tiny gold coin that I can't see, so it meant something but not as much as it does now. So it kind of makes any reference I have towards something mean that little bit more, if that makes sense, because I can now connect it to something that through the NFC tags I've been able to learn, whereas before it was just a vague knowledge to begin with. See, with Pliny himself, I think his idea of history for his time was fantastic, to be honest, and he was really useful, especially for me when it came to, because I studied ancient Roman history for an A-level, so for me Pliny the Elder was quite useful for me in terms of looking at some of the emperors specifically. So to be able to use the exhibit to kind of further that knowledge and help me to see things more as Pliny would see them was kind of endearing, to be honest. And I know it sounds daft, but it was like returning to an old friend, because I'd spent 2 years studying his works along with others, to be able to see how he saw Rome. Kind of, it was nice to be able to see something through somebody else's eyes and not just read it in a book and see it on a page. You could see what he was talking about with proof, so it wasn't just words for once. it was exhibited in front of you, which is obviously fantastic for someone with the sight issues that I have.